Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so I hope you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from Canada, English language, released in the year 2017, directed by Cody Callahan, and this film is called Let Her Out. So Let Her Out is about a courier, a bike courier. She is hit by a car one evening and she winds up in hospital. So when she's released from hospital, she starts to experience these strange occurrences. She has blackouts for hours at a time and she can't recollect what she's been doing. So her friends are very concerned. She ends up going to hospital for some scans. So the doctor comes back with the results and says that she's got vanishing twin syndrome, which is basically she was born with a twin, but the twin absorbed itself in her brain and has now been awoken since the accident. So as the situation starts to spiral out of control, her brain is starting to swell to a size that's too big for her skull, so she needs an operation. So 3 days time she's going to have that operation, but whether or not she lasts 3 days is going to be a good question, because the twin is starting to get very aggressive and basically wants a body of its own. So not only is this main character going to be in trouble, but those around her are going to be in great peril as well, and whether or not she can get to the operation in time is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Let Her Out. This is a very ambitious film, but unfortunately the ambition doesn't really pay off because it shoots itself in the foot quite a number of times. Now in a day and age where it's all about remakes and repetitive material and not really taking the horror genre seriously, I think it's a welcome breath of fresh air that a film is trying to progress the horror genre in a positive direction. This is not a movie made just for a cash grab. This is a movie that is taking inspiration from films from previous, but it's making its own heart. Is that this is a fan of horror, that this director is, and he's taking inspiration from Nicholas Winding Refn in the hypnotic visuals that the movie has. I thought there's a very hypnotizing atmosphere that's created. It's a very surreal atmosphere, and I couldn't help but feel trapped when I was watching it. And it's complemented by a very good sub-story, and it's a story about inner strength and inner fighting within yourself and how your body can play chaos. And so the movie reminded me of David Cronenberg body horror films, in particular The Fly, where it's a second meaning, that this struggle that this woman's having internally is a symbolization of something else. And so there's a little bit of multi-layer to this film that really complements the visuals. So it's not just a movie that is visuals or style over substance. This is a movie that does actually have a base that actually makes you interested and you want to see how it's going to unfold. And it unfolds in a very bizarre way. This is a very unique way of editing, where it tells a story, and I felt as though I was in the Twilight Zone. I felt, all right, this is very unique. This is a generic sort of story, but the way it's told is very unconventional. And so I really appreciated that. And this is a movie that does take risks, and it's not afraid to put its neck on the chopping block if those risks don't pay off. And so it's a very surreal film. You got some very good soundtrack, which reminded me of Starry Eyes. So once again, it takes inspiration from a lot of other films, but it's not copying any of it. So it's taking the inspiration of what made him, this director, a horror fan in the first place, but he's emulating something, and he's sculpturing, and he's made a sculpture of something that is his own identity. And so the movie does get very crazy, and it ultimately it's a climatic sort of scene at the end that is completely off the wall, and I thought that the overall tone was very consistent. It never really feels like it's two different films in one. So I thought that as far as a low-budget movie is concerned, it does have a very high-end production, but those visuals are complemented by that story, so I really like that. Unfortunately, though, there are a lot of problems to this movie, and as I said, it shoots itself in the foot, is that it wants to be an in-depth sort of film where it's about an inner turmoil with a second meaning, but unfortunately that second meaning never really feels as though it's taken advantage of, because the characters are very one-dimensional. And I thought that if a little bit more time in the characters was actually put in to expand their stories a little bit more, that second meaning would have worked a lot better. And that also would have fixed another problem that I had with the film, is that it goes for 90 minutes. Now, when it goes for 90 minutes, I felt as though there was a lot of times where the film would be progressing, then all of a sudden it would go around in circles, then it would progress and go around in circles. So I couldn't help but feel that there was a lot of filler in this film, whether it's repeated shots of the panning shots of the city, or if this woman doing the same thing quite a few times. I always felt that there was a strange sense of deja vu in that sort of sense, and so it felt as though it would have been a lot better if it was a 70-minute film. The continuity and the fluency would have been a lot better, but because it's 90 minutes, I felt as though it didn't have the content. But it could have had the content if those characters have gone into a little bit more. The script is lacking. It doesn't allow these characters to blossom to a point where I felt as though it was utilised. I thought there's a lot of potential in this film, and although it's ambitious, and I applaud the ambition, that potential was never realised, and so I thought it was a bit off a little bit more than it could chew. And there is also a strong sense of deja vu in the story, although it's unconventional way that it tells its story. Ultimately, the destination, I knew how it was going to get there, and I knew what was going to happen and what was in store for these characters. So on one hand, you've got a very unique film, but on the other hand, you've got a movie that just doesn't know how to get itself out of that predictability. Is that it does take twists and turns, but ultimately the destination is a predictable one, and therefore I could play fortune teller and tell how this was going to unfold. So in a day and age, as I said, of remakes and substandard material, not taking this horror genre seriously, this is definitely one I'd recommend. It's a very grotesque film. It's a beautiful film to look at, but it's got a very nasty heart with some shocking violence and just some really far out there moments, so it's incredibly bizarre, but it has that strong sense of beauty to it as with this character who is trying to come to terms with her inner self and her past. But I thought if her past and her character were a much more of a three-dimensional shape, the overall second meaning could have been a lot more impactful, and it could have made the film a very good one. But ultimately, it's a movie that I would recommend based on the fact that it's trying something unique, and as a result of that, I'm going to give Let Her Out 2.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.